both mentioned that this season the scope gets a little bigger. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Well, I think in season one we had a lot of setting up to do. We had to kind of get to know our characters. We had to get them off Earth, and then we had to kind of figure out what it was that they needed to do. And so they spent a lot of time on Eris, on Earth, and just figuring that stuff out. And now that we know where they need to go and how they need to do it, we can just spend the entirety of the season exploring all these new worlds and going from place to place and just furthering the story.
Yeah, I mean, we built the show to be kind of a road show, and we got to kind of touch upon it just a little bit in the first season, and this is really going to be, our big sort of showing the universe to the world. Yeah.
And piggybacking off of that, you showed season 2, and it takes place on a planet entirely underwater, right? So, and apparently this was a favorite of yours or something you pushed through?
It was definitely. That was one of my asks was, I want Pidge to be a girl and I want to have a mermaid episode. And it's, you don't always get the opportunity to do something as wacky as that with any show you're on. But this was a show where we could do just about anything. We could go to a planet that happened to be underwater and happen to have alien versions of mermaids. So it was something that I wanted just for my own personal love of mermaids, but luckily it was able to easily fit into the storyline of the show, and it wasn't like a complete, out of left field sort of thing that was just destroying our story.
I will say, Lance's reaction to mermaids in that episode is much like what Lauren would have a reaction to if she were to see mermaids. We have to see what's going on here.
So, I'm Cuban, and apparently Lance is too.
Looking that way, yeah.
He is.
No, I mean, that was, there were references to it before with Veradero Beach and the garlic knots and all that stuff. So, I think the world that we set up in Voltron, honestly, is more of sort of like a one united world. So we'd like to think that there's sort of border fluidity there and everybody's kind of mixing with everybody, but his family is definitely Cuban. I mean, his origins are Cuban.
We're going to see some Cuban food, some fried bananas,
I think
maybe.
so, for sure, yeah.
You also mentioned that Keith and Shiro are in a bad place, kind of. Or in trouble, I think is maybe what you said. Can you elaborate at all on that or tease it a little bit for us?
Well, I think, we saw Lance and Hunk, and it seemed like a beautiful planet that they landed on, but you ultimately realize there's more to that story. With Keith and Shiro, I think it's kind of obvious from the get-go, when you see what they're up against, where they've been sent, that it's a much harsher land that they're on, and they're just going to have to deal with that and get through it. And Shiro already being at a disadvantage because he just got out of that fight with Hagar, and he's definitely sporting that wound that she gave him in that battle.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we don't want to spoil anything, but I think the cool thing about sending everybody, their different ways is that everybody's sort of learning a different lesson on each of the places that they're at. So they come away slightly different than when they went in.
Are we, something I'm excited about, potentially, I don't know if it's in, but by going larger and deeper into the universe, are we going to discover that just how far the Empire actually reaches?
Yeah, I think so. We definitely have hinted that the Empire is dominating a large portion of the known universe, and so I think we'll see more of the people that are actually afflicted by that and affected by that.
Yeah. For me, that's the cool thing, is sort of seeing how far the Empire's sort of tentacles go and seeing how it affects different cultures in different ways.